Have you ever met someone and just known they were carrying too much pain to speak it out loud? Not the loud kind. Not the screaming, crying, throwing things kind of pain. But the quiet kind. The kind that just sits there, like a shadow behind their eyes. And you know, if they ever let it out, it might swallow the whole room. That was Liam. He walked into the diner like a ghost someone forgot to mourn. Broad shoulders, army jacket, and a little girl trailing behind him, barefoot in boots 2 sizes too big. She didn't say a word. Not even when Clara, our waitress, smiled and asked if they wanted chocolate milk. No blink. No nod. Just silence. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to speak after grief steals your breath? Have you ever watched a child go silent, not because they were shy, but because the world got too loud to bear? Stick with this story. Because what starts with a sugar packet and a whisper might just become the softest kind of love. And by the way, where are you watching from? Drop your country, your city, or even your cozy little corner of the couch. We love knowing who's out there listening to these stories with us. Back to Liam. He didn't sit by the window. Didn't choose the bright table near the jukebox. No. He went straight to the booth in the far corner. The one with the broken blinds that let just enough light in to remind you it's still morning. Clara watched him from the counter. Not in a nosy way, just that waitress kind of way. Like she could sense that the silence around him wasn't ordinary. And the little girl? Emma. She didn't fidget. She didn't ask for a menu. But Clara noticed one thing. The sugar packets on the table kept disappearing. One by one. Quietly. Into Emma's coat pocket. No one said anything. Not Liam. Not Emma. And Clara? Well, she didn't stop her. Because sometimes a child steals sugar when they're starving for something sweet. Maybe not food. But comfort. Emma didn't look up when Clara placed their drinks down. Didn't move when Liam muttered thanks with that sandpaper voice. The kind of voice that hasn't used kindness in a while. But Clara stayed gentle. She refilled the coffee. Slid a napkin across the table with a crayon she accidentally dropped nearby. And she watched. Watched the way Liam's fingers twitched near his fork like he was waiting for a sudden noise. Watched the way Emma clung to her stuffed rabbit like it was a shield, not a toy. You see, grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sits in a corner booth, with a haunted father, and a daughter who hasn't spoken since the funeral. And sometimes, all it takes to crack open that silence is someone who notices, but doesn't ask too much. They arrive just after sunrise. A beat-up pickup truck, dull green and coated in road dust, rolled into the parking lot of a roadside diner that smelled faintly of bacon grease and old coffee. The engine stalled out like it was relieved to stop. From the driver's side, a man stepped out. Tall. Broad-shouldered. The kind of man who looked like he used to fill a uniform with pride, before the weight of the world pressed his shoulders down. Liam. His eyes scanned the lot like a soldier still on edge, as if danger could be hiding behind the soda machine or the street lamp. And then, the passenger door opened. She stepped down in a tiny pair of boots. 5 years old. Blonde hair tangled from sleep, clutching a stuffed rabbit by the ear. Emma. She didn't speak. Didn't smile. Didn't make a sound. Just looked at the diner with that wide, wary stare kids have when they've seen too much, and been comforted too little. Liam crouched down and tied her shoelace. He didn't say anything either. They both seemed to be moving through fog. Inside, the diner was half empty. The hum of a fridge in the back. The clink of a spoon against a mug. A country song playing faintly from a dusty jukebox no one had touched in years. They sat at the booth in the corner, Liam with his back to the wall. Old habits. Emma slid in beside him, her little hands curled around the rabbit. She didn't look at the menu. She didn't look at anything. Behind the counter, a woman in an apron watched them. Not with suspicion. But something softer. Something like familiarity. Her name was Clara. And while she refilled the coffee pot and juggled orders, her eyes kept drifting back to the little girl who didn't speak. And the man who looked like he hadn't eaten in 2 days. When she came over, she smiled. "Coffee?" Liam nodded. His voice was low, hoarse, black. He didn't ask for food. Didn't ask for a kid's menu. Didn't even acknowledge Clara beyond that glance. Emma leaned over the table slightly. Just enough to reach the sugar packets near the napkin holder. She slipped 1, 2, 3 into her pocket. Like she'd done it before. Like she knew what to do when no one was watching. Clara saw it. She didn't say a word. She just poured the coffee and walked back to the counter, like nothing had happened. But her expression changed. Not anger. Not pity. Recognition. Like she'd seen that kind of hunger before, the quiet kind. The kind that hides behind small hands and downcast eyes. Liam stirred his coffee but didn't drink it. His jaw was clenched like he was holding back something sharp. Maybe a memory. Maybe a scream. And across from him, Emma just sat there, sugar packets tucked away like treasures, staring at the empty plate in front of her. Not a single word between them. Not yet. The next morning, they came back. Same booth. Same silence. Same sugar packets, slowly disappearing into the little girl's pocket like stolen secrets. Clara noticed, again. And again. Said nothing. Instead, she forgot a plate. It was nothing fancy, just a grilled cheese, warm and golden, cut diagonally like a mother might have done. A small bowl of soup beside it. The kind of food that hugs you without needing to say a word. She slid it quietly onto their table and turned away before Liam could object. No charge. No explanation. Emma blinked at the plate. Then glanced at her father, unsure. He was staring at the window, his fingers drumming against the coffee mug like he didn't even notice. But he did. He noticed everything. Still, he didn't speak. Didn't stop her, either. Emma slowly reached for the sandwich, hands trembling just slightly. Like the world had taught her not to trust gifts. Like food came with strings. But it didn't this time. She took one bite. Then another. Then paused, eyes fluttering shut for half a second, like she was tasting something more than just cheese and bread. Something that had been missing for a long, long time. Clara watched from behind the counter. Quietly. Softly. Carefully. She didn't approach again. Didn't hover. She just let them be. That's the thing about people who've seen too much. They don't need words to recognize the cracks in someone else. They just listen for the silences between them. By day 3, the pattern had settled in. Liam ordered the same coffee. Emma stole the same sugar. Clara forgot the same plate. And yet, something was shifting. Emma started coloring on napkins with a dull red crayon Clara left near the salt shaker. Clara swore she didn't put it there on purpose. But maybe she did. One afternoon, Clara saw it. Emma had drawn a small rabbit next to a tall man and a smiling woman. Clara's heart cracked just a little. She didn't say anything. She didn't ask. But she did place a fresh napkin on the table the next morning, this time with a full box of crayons beside it. That was the first time Liam looked at her. Really looked. His voice was rough. Measured. You don't have to keep feeding us. Clara didn't flinch. Didn't smile, either. I'm not, she said. I'm feeding her. Liam's mouth tightened. He didn't respond. But the next day, he left a $10 bill under the plate. Not because he had to. But because it was his way of saying, I noticed. I don't know how to say thank you, but I noticed. That afternoon, something else changed. Emma looked up from her crayon drawing. And for the first time, she met Clara's eyes, only for a second. But it was enough. Clara walked back into the kitchen, pretending she had something in her eye. Liam didn't see it. He was still stuck in his own war, still fighting battles no one else could see. But Clara? She'd fought her own kind of battles too. And she knew. Sometimes healing doesn't start with medicine or therapy or perfect timing. Sometimes, it starts with sugar packets. And silent whispers no one else hears. It happened one evening. The kind of evening where the sun slips low and the world feels a little quieter than usual. The diner buzz had thinned to just 2 booths and a flickering neon open sign in the window. Liam was already on edge. He sat hunched over his coffee, eyes scanning the door like something might break through it. His hands. Never still. A flick of the wrist. A tap of the thumb. PTSD doesn't always scream, it hums beneath the surface, waiting for something to pull the trigger. Emma had fallen asleep in the booth, curled up like a kitten under Liam's jacket. Her stuffed rabbit rested between her arms, threadbare and loved to death. Clara placed a fresh mug down in front of him. No smile this time. No soft banter. Just presence. Liam's voice came without warning. "You got a reason for watching us like we're some charity case?" Clara blinked, taken aback. But she didn't flinch. Not Clara. "I wasn't watching you," she said gently. "I was watching her." His jaw clenched. "She doesn't need your pity." "I wasn't offering any." There was a long pause. The kind where two people size each other up, but not with anger. With wounds. "I used to be a child psychologist," Clara finally said, her voice low. Liam's head tilted just slightly. "I thought you were a waitress." "I am," she replied. "Now." Silence again. She didn't offer more. But something about the way she stood there, shoulders set but soft, made Liam ask, "What happened?" Clara looked down, tracing a crack in the laminate table with her fingertip. "I lost a patient." Liam didn't interrupt. She was 7. Wouldn't speak after her brother died in a fire. Her mom dropped her off every Thursday, then picked her up like nothing ever happened. And every week, that little girl sat in my office and just stared. Clara's eyes were far away now. She finally said a word, just one. "And I thought it meant we were getting somewhere. That maybe I could save her." Her voice broke for the first time. She died 3 weeks later. Jumped from a second-floor window while her mom was yelling at her from the driveway. The diner felt too quiet after that. Clara took a breath, steadying herself. "I quit. Packed up. Came back here. Serving pancakes is easier than watching kids fall through cracks you can't seal." Liam said nothing. But something in him shifted. Just a little. He looked at Emma, still sleeping, chest rising slow and soft. "She hasn't said a word since her mom died," he muttered. Clara nodded. "I figured." "You think you can fix her?" he asked, voice sharp again. Defensive. Protective. Clara shook her head. "She's not broken. She's surviving." That struck a nerve. Liam stood abruptly, almost knocking over the chair. His voice rose, quiet but fierce. "I don't need a stranger trying to crawl into our lives for redemption." Clara stayed calm. "I'm not trying to fix you either." Liam stared at her. Long and hard. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were tired. Bone-deep tired. "She doesn't trust anyone." "She doesn't have to," Clara said softly. "She just has to feel safe." He looked down at Emma again. "She's all I've got," he whispered. "And you're all she has," Clara replied. "That's why I'm not walking away. Not yet." He didn't answer. He just nodded once. Barely noticeable. Then sat back down, like gravity was too much tonight. Clara turned to go. But just before disappearing behind the counter, she added, "Next time she whispers something, don't make her say it twice." It was supposed to be a normal morning. Clara had written Happy Tuesday, Emma in syrup on a pancake. Little smiley face drawn in whipped cream. Just a simple, gentle gesture. Something light. Something kind. But kindness is a landmine when you're not ready to receive it. Liam sat stiffly at the corner booth, coffee untouched, eyes hollow. Emma sat next to him, picking at her pancake, her rabbit tucked into her lap like it was the only thing holding her together. And then it happened. A tray clattered in the kitchen. Loud. Sharp. Sudden. Metal hitting tile. Everyone else barely noticed. But Liam. He flinched so hard his knee hit the table. His hand flew to the side of his belt. He was breathing like he was back there, wherever there was. His eyes lost focus. His shoulders curled in like he was bracing for impact. It wasn't a diner anymore. Not for him. Emma froze. Her tiny hands trembled over the rim of her plate. She looked at her father, not with fear, but with something worse. Familiarity. This wasn't the first time. Clara moved without thinking. She didn't touch him. Didn't say his name. Just sat across from him. And started talking. Casual. Calm. Measured. "You know what I hate about pancakes?" she said softly. Liam didn't look at her. Still stuck. Still breathing like a soldier in the dark. "They always get cold before you finish them. You'd think something warm and sweet would at least stick around long enough to help." Her voice was low. Steady. The kind of voice you'd follow out of a storm. Emma looked at Clara, confused. But then, she kept listening. "I used to make pancakes for my niece every Saturday. She'd drown them in syrup until the plate looked like a swimming pool. Said it made her feel like she was on vacation." Liam's breathing slowed. Not by much. But enough. Clara didn't stop. Funny thing is, she hated vacations. Cried every time her parents packed a suitcase. She just liked the idea of them. The illusion. Like maybe sweet things could take you somewhere else for a while. Liam blinked. His shoulders dropped. The room came back into focus. He looked across the table. At Clara. At Emma. At the pancake with whipped cream ice slowly melting into syrup. And for just a second, shame washed over his face. Thick and heavy. "I'm sorry," he muttered. Clara shook her head gently. "Don't apologize to me." Emma reached for his hand. Small fingers brushing against his scarred knuckles. Liam gripped her hand like a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he looked like he was really there. Not just existing. Not just surviving. But there. Clara stood, slow and graceful. "Coffee's probably cold," she said with a soft smile. "I'll get you a fresh one." Liam nodded. Didn't speak. Emma took another bite of her pancake. No words, no sounds. But there was something different in her eyes now. A flicker. Like maybe the door inside her had cracked open a little. And Clara. She didn't knock. She just waited on the other side, patient as ever. Some stories don't change in explosions. They shift quietly, so soft, you almost miss it. A blink. A breath. A whisper. It was raining that morning. A slow drizzle that painted the windows in streaks and made the world feel just a little softer, like the sky was grieving too. Liam looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. The kind that comes from holding everything in for too long. He hadn't said much since the pancake incident. But something about him had softened. He let Clara refill his coffee now. Even nodded when she passed. And Emma. Emma had started coloring more. Every day, Clara found new napkin drawings. Rabbits. A sun with a crooked smile. 3 stick figures standing under a tree. One was tall. One was small. One had red scribbled hair. Clara kept every single one. This morning, Clara slid into the booth across from Emma. Not beside. Not too close. Just across. She pulled something from her apron pocket. A tiny music box. Old. Worn. The kind that plays a lullaby too slowly, like it remembers being loved. Clara placed it on the table. gave it a gentle twist. The tune spilled out, soft and sweet, slightly off-key. Emma looked up, startled at first. Then, she watched. Eyes fixed on the spinning ballerina inside the box. "That was mine when I was little," Clara whispered. "I used to think the music could keep monsters away." Emma blinked. Then glanced at the ballerina. "She has no mouth," Clara added, with a tiny smile. "I think that's why I liked her. She didn't need to say anything to be understood." The music played on. Emma reached out slowly, fingertips brushing the edge of the box. Then, barely audible, like wind through a keyhole, she said it. "Mommy." Clara froze. So did Liam. He'd just come around the corner with 2 mugs, but the sound stopped him cold. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Emma's lips trembled. Her eyes didn't meet anyone's. She just kept staring at the music box. And whispered again. "Mommy." Clara didn't speak. Didn't cry. Didn't rush to praise her. She simply let the moment live. Because sometimes, when a door finally opens, you don't push it wider. You wait. You honor it. Liam set the mugs down with shaking hands. He knelt beside his daughter. Brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly. Emma blinked up at him. And then, she reached for him. Her arms stretched out, small and uncertain, but wanting. Liam pulled her into his chest, careful, like she might break. She didn't. She just cried. Silent at first, then not. And he held her, letting the storm roll through. Clara stood quietly. No words. No need. Because this wasn't her moment. It was Emma's. And Liam's. The music box kept turning, the ballerina spinning on and on. A broken tune in a broken world. But somehow, it sounded like hope. There's a strange kind of silence that follows a breakthrough. It's not the heavy silence of grief. It's the quiet that comes after a storm. When everything's still. But not settled. Emma had whispered. Twice. And the world hadn't fallen apart. She was still Emma, quiet, watchful, holding tight to her stuffed rabbit like it carried every secret she'd never said aloud. But now, she hummed sometimes. Traced her finger along the edge of the diner's table. Even smiled once, when Clara gave her a strawberry milkshake with 2 straws. But Liam was retreating. Not physically, he still came every morning. Same booth. Same coffee. But emotionally? He was pulling back. Conversations were clipped. Responses short. His glances toward Clara, fewer. Clara noticed. Of course she did. One day, she brought him a warm cinnamon roll on a napkin without saying a word. Liam looked at it. Then pushed it slightly away, like kindness had become too heavy to hold. "Thanks," he muttered, barely meeting her eyes. That was the first time he hadn't stayed for the whole breakfast. Told Emma they had errands to run. Left a tip on the table, $20 for a $10 meal. Clara stood by the counter and watched the truck pull out of the lot. Not angry. Just quiet. Because some people don't know how to accept help without feeling weak. And Liam? He'd survived war, loss, and raising a child through grief, but letting someone in? That was the battle he wasn't ready for. That night, it rained again. Clara stood at the diner sink, washing mugs, when the door creaked open. Liam. Soaked. Unshaven. Eyes darker than she'd ever seen them. "I'm not here for food," he said, voice low. "I just..." Clara didn't move. "Emma had a nightmare," he continued. "Woke up screaming. Didn't want me. Called for you." That hurt more than he expected it to. Clara dried her hands on a dish towel. "She's building trust," she said quietly. "That's a good thing." Liam laughed under his breath. But it wasn't amusement. It was frustration. This was supposed to be me and her. I'm her father. I'm supposed to know what she needs. "You do," Clara replied. "But sometimes, a child just finds safety in different places. It doesn't mean you've failed." He looked away. I don't want her getting attached to someone who might leave. That was the real fear, the core of it. Not pride. Abandonment. Clara took a breath. Then walked around the counter until she stood in front of him. I'm not trying to replace anyone, Liam, she said gently. I'm just here. And that's the problem, he snapped. Because I don't want to need you here. The words hung in the air, thick and bitter. Clara didn't flinch. But her expression changed. Softness pulled back. Something more guarded took its place. I didn't ask you to need me, she said. I was helping Emma. You just got used to the sound of my voice while I did it. Liam stared at her. And for a moment, neither of them moved. Two people standing in a diner under flickering fluorescent lights, carrying years of pain between them like invisible bags. She asked if you were coming back tomorrow, Liam finally said. Then turned to leave. Before the door shut behind him, Clara called out, just once. I didn't stop being a psychologist because I lost faith in children, she said. I stopped because I lost faith in adults. The door clicked. He was gone. And Clara stood alone in the stillness. Hands trembling slightly around the dish towel. She didn't cry. But her chest ached in that familiar way. The ache of getting close to something you know you can't hold on to. Because love, in all its quiet forms, is risky. And letting someone lean on you is sometimes the most terrifying thing of all. 3 days. That's how long the booth sat empty. No boots scuffing the floor. No small hands reaching for sugar packets. No half-full mugs of black coffee going cold from neglect. Just silence. Clara pretended not to notice. But the thing about pretending is, it only works on people who aren't paying attention. And Clara had always been paying attention. She still set out 2 mugs. Still tucked a crayon under a napkin just in case. But deep down, she knew. He was pulling away. And this time, he might not come back. That morning, she wiped down the corner booth slowly. Lingering over the grooves in the wood where Emma had once dragged her crayon across the table. Unintentional art. Now, just a gust of color that refused to wash away. Then, something unusual. A soft knock on the glass. Not the bell. Not the door. Just a light tapping. Clara looked up. A neighborhood boy stood outside, holding a brown envelope. He didn't come in. Just passed it through the door and ran back toward a waiting car. Inside the envelope was a single folded napkin. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. A drawing. Crayons, bright and clumsy. 3 stick figures again. The girl with yellow hair and a pink rabbit. A tall man beside her in green. And a red-haired woman, smiling at them both. Above it, in crooked letters that made her heart twist. I miss the diner. I miss Clara. Clara pressed the napkin against her chest. Took a breath. Let it out slowly. It wasn't just a child's drawing. It was a message. A whisper between the lines. And she wasn't sure if it was from Emma. Or from the father who hadn't been brave enough to write it himself. Across town, Liam stood in the hallway, watching Emma sleep. She was curled under a blanket that didn't quite cover her toes. Rabbit pressed to her cheek. A soft snore escaping her mouth between dreams. And he was drowning in the space between doing what he thought was best. And doing what felt right. Pride is a strange thing. It builds armor. But it also builds distance. He opened a drawer and pulled out a letter. One he'd read 1,000 times. From her. His wife. The one he buried with nothing but a flag, a photograph, and a promise he couldn't keep. Her handwriting was soft and looping. But the words were sharp. Don't let grief make you hard, Liam. Let her feel love, even if it doesn't come from you. He stared at that line until the words blurred. Then he folded the letter back. Slower this time, like he was folding a part of himself too. The next morning, he didn't say where they were going. Just packed Emma's rabbit. Put her in the truck. And drove. When they pulled up to the diner, Emma's eyes lit up before he even cut the engine. She reached for the door without hesitation. Inside, Clara was wiping down the counter. She looked up and froze. Emma ran straight into her arms. No words. Just a hug. Tight, real, honest. Liam stood at the doorway. Wet boots, unshaved, guilt blooming behind his ribs. He didn't move at first. Then, slowly, he walked to the booth. Sat down. Didn't speak. Just waited. Clara pulled away from Emma and met his eyes across the room. No accusations. No speeches. Just a quiet look that said, "I knew you'd find your way back." She brought him coffee. Poured without asking. This time, he drank it. Emma climbed into the booth beside him. Reached for a crayon. Started drawing again. Clara slid into the seat across from them. No one said much. But they didn't need to. Because sometimes, a napkin drawing is louder than any apology. A coffee refill is softer than forgiveness. And love, when it's honest, doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes in little letters, carried by wind, folded into hearts that are just beginning to open again. The booth was theirs now. No one else sat there. Clara stopped offering it to other customers. She didn't need to. Every morning, without fail, Liam and Emma came through that door like they were walking into something sacred. Not a diner. Not a routine. But a home. Emma stopped pocketing sugar packets. She didn't need to steal anymore. Now, she waited patiently. Sometimes she even ordered for herself. Softly, shyly, voice trembling with courage that hadn't existed a month ago. "Chocolate chip pancakes, please." Clara always smiled. "Coming right up, sweetheart." And Liam? He changed too. Not all at once. Not in the way movies show it. He still had hard mornings. Still clenched his jaw when a car backfired outside. Still stared too long at the door sometimes, like he expected something to go wrong. But he started talking more. Little things at first. A comment about the weather. A question about the jukebox. A half smile when Clara handed him coffee without needing to ask. Then one day, he said something real. "I used to think I couldn't protect her unless I kept everyone out," he admitted. "But the truth is, I wasn't keeping danger out. I was keeping her from healing." Clara didn't reply with a lecture. Didn't try to fix it. She just nodded. "I know." That was all he needed. Sometimes, healing isn't a loud process. It doesn't come in milestones or epiphanies. It comes in quiet mornings. Shared glances. And two people sitting at the same booth until the silence between them turns into something warm. One afternoon, Emma handed Clara a folded piece of paper. A drawing, as always. But this time, no rabbits. No lonely stick figures. Just three people. One tall. One small. One red-haired woman standing between them, holding both their hands. Clara looked up. Emma was smiling. Liam was watching from across the booth, soft-eyed, calm, like he already knew what the drawing meant. Clara blinked back tears. "You kept this one neat," she whispered. Emma nodded. "It's not for the fridge," she said. "It's for you." The weight of that moment. It filled the booth like sunlight through a dusty window. Later that evening, Liam lingered after closing time. Emma had fallen asleep in the booth, curled against his side. The jukebox played something old. Something slow, something that felt like a memory just being born. Clara wiped down the counter for the third time, pretending not to notice he hadn't left yet. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know what this is," he said quietly. "Between us." Clara looked up. "But I know it's something," he added. She smiled, not wide, not dramatic. "Just enough." "It doesn't have to be anything yet," she said. "We can just keep showing up." Liam nodded. He looked down at Emma. "She deserves soft things," he murmured. Clara stepped closer. "She already has them. Look around. 2 mugs. 1 crayon box. A single sugar packet tucked into the napkin holder for old time's sake. And 2 seats. Side by side. Always waiting." Love didn't announce itself with fireworks that night. It didn't come with declarations or sweeping gestures. It came quietly, in the form of a father learning how to exhale. A little girl learning how to trust. And a woman who chose to stay, even when she didn't have to. So they stayed. Every morning. Same booth. Same coffee. Same love, unspoken, but understood. Because sometimes, the grandest love stories start with nothing more than 2 seats at the corner booth. And a waitress who just refused to look away. So maybe love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Maybe it doesn't come wrapped in grand confessions or movie scene kisses. Maybe it shows up quietly, in a corner booth, with lukewarm coffee, a sugar packet, and a second chance. Because healing isn't loud. It's patient. It's everyday. And sometimes, it's just someone who refuses to leave. And now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been someone's quiet safe place? Or has someone ever been yours, just by staying when they didn't have to? Tell us in the comments. You never know who your story might comfort. And if this one touched your heart, even a little, go ahead and hit subscribe for more emotional stories just like this one. We tell the ones most people overlook, the soft ones, the healing ones, the ones that remind us it's okay to start over. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stay. Even if all you have is 2 seats at a corner booth.